He acts distant, but his words betray him. In this video, we reveal 9 phrases he says without realizing, and according to Freud, they expose a hidden love even he hasn't recognized. Get ready to uncover the signs his unconscious can't hide, but his heart already knows. Phrase 1, the forbidden gaze. What do you think about it? He comes to you and asks, what do you think about it? He asks the question with a neutral tone, as if he's asking about the weather. But behind his casual words lies something far more vulnerable, a quiet rebellion of the ego against the superego. Freud would call this a breakthrough in repression. The man who asks for your opinion isn't merely curious, he's momentarily lowering the defense mechanisms that keep his emotional world intact. He is unconsciously seeking your ego's approval, granting you symbolic access to the architecture of his internal world. In psychoanalytic terms, asking what do you think is a projection of his own emotional ambivalence. It's not advice he seeks. It's unconscious permission. A way to say, let me borrow your mind so I don't have to face mine. He is not emotionally detached. He is emotionally defended. And this phrase is his unconscious hand reaching out from beneath the surface. But to fully grasp this, we must trace it back. Freud's topographical model of the mind proposed that the conscious is just a thin film over the dark sea of the unconscious. Beneath every interaction, he theorized, lies a repressed intention, a memory, a longing distorted by the mind's relentless urge to self-protect. So when a man, especially one who's emotionally restrained, asks for your thoughts, he is doing something his unconscious rarely allows, relinquishing control. To ask for your thoughts is to subvert the inner superego that demands masculine autonomy. In male psychology, where independence equals worth, seeking your input is an act of unconscious dependency. But dependency, in Freud's view, is not weakness. It is regression, the ego's return to a safer state where connection, not control, governs. Why does this matter? Because this regression is not pathological, is sacred. For the emotionally defended man, love is the most dangerous idea. It threatens his internal structure, his defenses, his well-practiced scripts. And yet, in this moment, this small question, he is stepping outside his own fortress. And beneath that question lies another. If I let you shape this decision, will you reshape my world? Will I still be safe? Or will I lose the fragile illusion that I am self-contained, untouched by influence? Your response, then, holds more weight than it seems. If you dismiss the question, you confirm his fear. That emotional vulnerability leads to rejection. But if you meet him, if you pause, reflect, and offer a real answer, you become a co-author in his psychic reorganization. In this moment, you're not simply a romantic partner. You are his transitional object. Freud borrowed this term from Winnicott, a symbol of safety bridging solitude and union. He is not just asking you to help with a decision. He is asking, can I trust you with the parts of me I don't understand yet? And that is the hidden poetry of this phrase. What do you think? Is not a question. It is a door. A quiet, trembling invitation into the unconscious architecture of a guarded man's desire to be known. This is not just conversation. It is communion. And if you listen with presence, you will hear it. The tremble of an ego loosening its grip, and the whisper of a heart beginning to risk exposure. Phrase 2. Regression in plain sight. I had a rough day. He doesn't mean to burden you. Not consciously. He comes in, drops his keys a little too loudly, loosens his tie with an exhale that carries more than exhaustion. I had a rough day, he says. It sounds like small talk, but it isn't. It's a psychological regression disguised as routine. To Freud, regression is a defense, a way for the ego to retreat to earlier stages of development when faced with overwhelming stress. When he says he had a hard day, he's not just venting. He is, in that moment, unconsciously stepping back from the performance of adulthood and seeking refuge in the presence of someone who feels emotionally safe. Think of this phrase as a disguised plea. Will you see the boy inside the man? The ego, under the pressure of reality, often seeks a form of unconscious release. In children, that release may look like a tantrum or silence. In men, especially those conditioned not to show weakness, it often emerges in this cryptic form, a mundane-sounding phrase that masks emotional overwhelm. What Freud understood, and what we often forget, is that emotional regression is not always dramatic. Sometimes it's silent, gentle, camouflaged, but the unconscious knows, and it speaks through slips, tones, and subtle cues. When he tells you he had a rough day, he is not asking for solutions. He is testing the water. Can I put my armor down here? Can I be disappointed, lost, or small and still be loved? In Freudian terms, the pleasure principle is aching to return, to find rest, comfort, and mirroring. In you, he doesn't just want comfort. He wants recognition. He wants to be seen in his wounded state and not be corrected or coached out of it. Your role is not to fix, but to reflect. To become a calm, regulated nervous system that mirrors back. It's safe to be human here. And here's the paradox. The man who has been taught to equate strength with stoicism is now revealing his deepest emotional truth through the most seemingly ordinary words. I had a rough day is not an update. It is a revelation. It is the ID peeking through, not with rage or lust, but with fatigue, with the quiet ache of being alive. If you miss this cue, the moment passes. But if you see it, if you listen with your whole presence, you allow the unconscious its most precious need, to be held without having to explain. This is where real intimacy begins. Not in grand gestures, but in these slips of emotional exposure. When the ID finally whispers through the cracks in the ego's armor, and someone you listens. Phrase 3, rewriting the ego. I like how you arrange this. He says it offhandedly, maybe while passing through the doorway, or picking up something you moved. I like how you arrange this. It sounds casual, but in Freudian terms, it's revolutionary. Because for the male unconscious, shaped by the illusion of autonomy, space is his ego made manifest. And you, in altering that space, have gently altered him. Freud believed that the ego is constructed through identifications. From infancy onward, the people we love and fear become part of our psychic structure. Their gestures, their style, their values embed themselves in the scaffold of who we are. When a man permits you to influence his physical world, to move, shift, or beautify his environment, he is inviting your essence into the framework of his self. I like how you arrange this is not just a comment. It is an unconscious confession. You now occupy space inside his psyche. Masculine psychology often prizes territory, not just physically but emotionally, is a symbolic extension of control. So when he admires your touch on his environment, he is surrendering a piece of that control. He is saying, without realizing it, you feel safe enough to shape me. This is why it matters. Because within the Freudian model, the superego watches closely, especially when love softens boundaries. It warns against change. It warns against dependency. And still, he lets your presence shift the energy of his world. There's a maternal echo here, too. The first space we ever inhabit, the mother's womb, sets the tone for how we relate to space and comfort. A man who finds pleasure in your arrangement is not just enjoying the aesthetics. He is recalling unconsciously the psychic memory of being held, soothed, known. He will not say this out loud. He may not even be aware, but his unconscious speaks in symbols. And you, through your influence on his surroundings, have become a symbol of emotional grounding. So when he says, I like how you arrange this, hear it fully. He is saying, I like how you hold the world. I trust the atmosphere you bring. I want more of your order in my chaos. The ego restructured by the soft imprint of your presence. That is not just a compliment. It's love, quietly rearranging the room. Phrase 4, the future as transference. What are you doing tomorrow? He asks you with ease, maybe after a pause or a quiet breakfast. What are you doing tomorrow? It sounds like curiosity, harmless. But within the question lies a psychological leap, an unconscious yearning to be part of something bigger than himself. To Freud, time is not just a linear progression. It's a structure upon which the ego builds its continuity, its sense of identity. So when a man begins folding you into his future, even briefly, he is making a transference. Not onto you as a person, but onto the idea of stability that your presence represents. In Freudian language, transference is the redirection of emotions and desires, often unconscious, from one person to another. Originally experienced in childhood, these desires resurface in adult relationships, offering a chance at emotional resolution or reenactment. When he asks about your plans for tomorrow, what he is really doing is inserting you into his psychic continuity. He is saying without knowing, my future feels safer when you're in it. It's not possessiveness. It's not planning. It's a soft bid for psychic anchoring. Because the masculine psyche, shaped by centuries of individuation, self-reliance, and emotional solitude, doesn't naturally make space for others. To fold you into his idea of tomorrow is to gently rewrite that solitude. It's an unconscious act of surrender. This is why so many women misread this gesture. It seems casual, functional, But what's happening beneath the surface is a reorganization of his emotional world. To Freud, love is not a conscious decision. It is the return of the repressed, the emergence of early unmet needs in a new, disguised form. When he asks you about tomorrow, he is asking to be seen, to be included, to feel that he exists within someone else's emotional forecast. And the most touching part? He likely doesn't know why he's asking. The ego rarely does. But the unconscious, patient, ancient always does. Your response again becomes a mirror. If you share your plans with warmth, if you include him in your rhythm, you validate his unconscious desire to belong. You affirm that he is no longer alone in the architecture of his mind. What are you doing tomorrow? May be the closest his defenses will allow him to say. I want to find you again, even in the unknown. And that is the essence of transference, the deep, unspoken hope that someone might carry us forward into a future that doesn't yet feel safe to imagine alone. Phrase 5, the collapse of omnipotence. I don't know what to do. He says it slowly, maybe sitting on the edge of the bed, maybe in the car with the engine idling. I don't know what to do. And just like that, the mask slips. Freud called this collapse of certainty the ego's failure to repress the truth. In a society that feeds men the illusion of control, that they must always know, always lead, this sentence is an act of emotional defiance, a surrender. What he's doing in that moment is exposing the inner fracture between the superego and the ego. The superego demands clarity, decisiveness, order. But the ego, bruised by reality, can no longer pretend. This phrase is not a cry for solutions. It is a mourning, the mourning of his omnipotence. And perhaps, secretly, the longing for someone to still love him after it's gone. To Freud, human suffering often comes from the dissonance between who we think we should be and who we truly are. The man who says, I don't know what to do, is letting you see him at that intersection. He does not want you to fix it. He wants to be seen in his lostness and still be held with dignity. This is the moment where many relationships fracture. The woman, trained like him to value strength, may interpret his admission as weakness. Immaturity, a red flag. But what she's witnessing is not incompetence. It is intimacy. And if she can hold it, just hold it, without recoiling, something extraordinary happens. The man who feels accepted in his confusion finds the permission to explore, to reflect, to become, because it is only in the collapse of the false self that the real self begins to emerge. I don't know what to do is not failure, is freedom gasping for its first breath. Freud would say, do not silence it, do not shame it, simply witness it. And in that witnessing, love him where even he cannot reach himself. Phrase 6, symbolic integration, you made me think about. It's late, you're not around, and something, a song, a scent, a memory, passes through him. He reaches out or says later, you made me think about. On the surface, it seems sweet, an idle comment. But to Freud, this is psychic evidence of cathexis, the unconscious investment of libido into an object, image, or idea. And in this case, that object is you. You made me think about is not merely a passing thought, is a leak from the unconscious, an admission that you've infiltrated his psychic space, that your image exists independently inside him now, reshaping his inner world. Freud believed that love isn't just about attraction, it's about identification and internalization. To think of someone spontaneously, to have their presence invoked by unrelated stimuli, is to reveal how deeply they've rooted inside you. So when he says this, what he means, unconsciously, is, you live inside my associative memory. This is no small feat. The male unconscious, often compartmentalized, rigid, defended, does not easily make space for others. And yet here you are, appearing in the interstitials of his awareness. In silence, in routine, in things that should have nothing to do with you, and yet now they do. This is the beginning of psychic merging, and is often involuntary. In these moments, his ego is unaware, but the unconscious speaks freely. The mind is a web of pathways, and you have become a central thread. He sees you in things, hears you in silence, and feels you even when you are not there. You made me think about is the phrase that reveals his emotional permeability. His resistance is softening. His defenses are failing beautifully. This is not obsession. It's not fantasy. It is integration. The process by which you become a symbol not of threat or chaos, but of emotional resonance. To respond, ask him what exactly made him think of you. Invite him into his own unconscious. And share gently when the world has also reminded you of him. You are not just returning the sentiment, you are participating in mutual symbolic formation. Freud would say, in that moment, love is not being spoken. It is being remembered. Phrase 7. The death of the isolated ego. Do you think we should? He no longer says, I. He says we. And you don't notice it at first. It slips out, soft, unannounced. Do you think we should? Freud would not miss this. Because to him, this is the quiet death of the isolated ego. The man, long defended by separateness, begins to dissolve the psychic wall between self and other. This is not just partnership. It's psychological transformation. In the Freudian model, the ego is formed to mediate between inner impulses and outer demands. But when a man shifts his language from I to we, he is redrawing the very lines of that mediation. He is not just inviting you into his decision-making, he is restructuring his self-definition. Do you think we should? Is not about logistics. It is about belonging. It means your needs, your opinions, your presence have become internal to him. They now live inside the space where only his voice used to echo. This is not codependence. It's individuation through intimacy. A Freudian paradox. Because true individuation doesn't mean being alone. It means being whole with others inside us. So when he says we, pause. Feel the weight of it. He is not just planning the future. He is telling you, my unconscious no longer separates me from you. And that, Freud might argue, is where love begins, not as a choice, but as a psychic inevitability. Phrase 8, the silent offering. Let me do this for you. He doesn't announce it. He simply does it. Fixes the broken light. Brings you water. Waits in silence when you need space. Let me do this for you. It might be said, or it might remain wordless, expressed only through action. To the casual observer, it's kindness. To Freud, it's sublimation, the redirection of instinctual drive into a socially acceptable act. But when driven by unconscious attachment, these gestures become sacred. He may not articulate his care in flowery sentences, but this gesture carries the weight of psychic labor. He is not merely helping. He is sacrificing egoic needs, his time, energy, or pride, to serve something deeper, his attachment to you. In these moments, he's not solving a problem. He's anchoring himself in the only language his unconscious feels safe speaking, devotion through doing. Why? Because words feel risky. Vulnerability, spoken aloud, invites rejection. But action allows him to bypass the superego's judgment. The unconscious can love silently, fiercely, without asking permission. So when he insists, let me do this for you, what he's really saying is, let me stay near you in a way that feels safe to me. Let me protect without needing to confess how much I care. These gestures aren't random. They're symbolic. The fixing, carrying, adjusting, they echo the primal drive to provide, not out of dominance, but of deep emotional tethering. And in that tether, he finds identity, belonging. If you rush to decline his offer, you may unconsciously reject his only safe way of expressing care. But if you receive it, not out of need, but out of understanding, you affirm his place in your world. Freud might say, the most unconscious expressions of love are often the most sincere. They bypass language and live in the body, in the gesture, in the instinct. And if you learn to read them, you will see, love has been speaking all along. Phrase 9. The protective withdrawal. I need some time alone. He turns away, closes the door gently, spends a few hours in silence. I need some time alone, he says. To many, this sounds like detachment. But in Freud's world, this is something else, the return to the psychic cave, a regression to the internal world where he can sort through the parts of himself he's afraid to show. Withdrawal, in Freudian terms, is not the absence of emotion, it is the containment of too much emotion. When a man loves deeply, he may retreat not because he doesn't feel, but because he feels too much. His defenses activate. The ego braces. The ID stirs with longing, fear, hunger, shame. And the safest response he knows is retreat. Distance. Quiet. But here's what's often missed. He's not withdrawing from you. He's withdrawing from his inability to process his feelings in front of you. Because what's surfacing is unformed, unspeakable. The unconscious is not linear. It needs solitude to reorganize. So when he says, I need space, it can be a sacred pause. An unconscious effort to preserve a relationship by preventing himself from acting out, lashing out, or falling apart. He's protecting the connection the only way he knows how, by stepping back until he can safely step forward. If you panic or pursue, you You may reinforce his fear that he must choose between freedom and closeness. But if you allow the pause, if you honor the boundary with quiet trust, he may return not more distant, but more integrated. Because he didn't leave to escape you. He left to find the version of himself that can stay. Freud would remind us, love is not the absence of distance. It is the return after distance, again and again, with deeper presence. In his withdrawal, listen not for rejection, but for the echo of someone finding his way back. If any of these phrases echoed in your heart, take a breath. You're not alone. Sometimes the things that seem small are where the unconscious speaks the loudest. If this resonated with you, reflect on how these phrases may have appeared in your life, and what was truly being said beneath them. Have you heard these words before? Or felt unseen while they were being spoken? Share your experience in the comments. Your insight may give someone else the clarity they've been quietly searching for.